It is a gigantic day in the National Football League and in the nation's capital, where the Commanders have indeed pulled off a blockbuster deal. They have added a four-time Pro Bowl corner, and they have gotten a whole lot better. As we welcome you in, we thought we'd start the show 2 hours ahead of the deadline, predicting what might be coming down the pike. We'll still do some of that. Because Adam Peters, Danny, still has 2 hours to move and shake. But they have already made their big move. A third, fourth, and sixth round draft pick. Packaged together, 3 picks to New Orleans for Marshon Lattimore, the former 11th overall pick, a 28-year-old legitimate corner one, and a 5th round pick. Peters, Newmark, in the front office pounce at 7-2 near the top of the conference.
Injury concerns with Lattimore, that's just a thing. That's part and parcel. But when that dude's on the field, he can play. That is a really, really good football player. So immediately, I like to use a little website called Our Lads for my up-to-date depth charts. They do a pretty good job. I mean, it's one short of like what the coach actually has on his board, how fast they are. It's already updated. Right there at the top of that cornerback list, little RCB, it says Lattimore, Marshon. That was fast. And that's the story. That's the best cornerback in your room now. The instant he arrives, when the thanks for flying to Washington, D.C., Dallas Airport. As soon as that plane lands, he's the best cornerback in Virginia. He'll be the best cornerback you got.
Here's the key to the whole thing. St. Just, a corner 2, moonlighting as a 1, moves down. He gets to play in now what is a much more friendly and traditional spot for him, I would say, with his game. Everybody else down the depth chart. That means Mikey Sanristil can play nickel, which is what you drafted him to do. That means
That's right.
Noah Igbenogany, who, like Sanristil and like St. Just, has done some really good things, being asked to do more than was expected to be asked, right? He gets moved down the depth chart. He is a 4th guy. He is an extra piece who can be flexed and used inside and outside. When you add a number 1 at a position, you move everybody down one spot. And that's exactly what they were able to do with this Marshon Lattimore trade. I just love the grown-up operation and the common sense with which they operate, where sometimes when we all see something on the outside, they see it too.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that for 3 days, we all would sit around going, man, they're not very good at cornerback. It sure would be nice if they got a cornerback. And then there'd be a press conference after 4 o'clock today in this hypothetical where we'd be told why we were wrong about cornerback and why they were right. And in fact, Adam Peters and the crew said, we're pretty good. We're 7-2. We got a legitimate quarterback and a elite offense, and we got a chance to make some playoff noise. We're really susceptible at one position. We really need help at one spot. Why don't we address it? And in one fell swoop, wasn't cheap, by the way. Everyone's saying there's just nothing. They didn't give anything up. Sure they did. They gave up a 3rd round pick. They gave up a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick as an organization that doesn't want to be in the business of giving up picks. But you know what you got to do to get something good? You got to give something up. And they did. And if Lattimore's healthy, you got yourself a viable number 1 cornerback on the depth chart.
So it's interesting because it's not for a guy of that caliber. Usually that's 1st or 2nd round territory in my brain. I mean, the NFL deals I'm always off on and compensation I'm always kind of surprised by, et cetera. But a Pro Bowler who has a chance to be an All-Pro on a yearly basis when he's healthy, usually you'd think a higher price tag. When you add in contract, you add in injury concerns and risks and kind of the state of the union there in New Orleans, where they are in cap hell. They are bad and sinking fast. They need to rip everything out to the studs and kind of start over again. It starts to make more sense. But this isn't nothing. This isn't like a 7th round pick swap with a ham sandwich. There's picks being exchanged here, top 100 picks, right? Which is not something that, as you mentioned very well, Adam Peters generally is about doing. But I think there's a recognition here where that's not too steep a price to pay. You've already laid the groundwork, by the way. You currently have the 8th pick in the 3rd round still from the Jahan Dotson deal, Philadelphia via Miami, where that, depends on where Miami finishes. You've still got a 3rd rounder. You're getting a 5th rounder back. So in effect, cap space will be gone. You'll have to restructure, use some cash to either extend or change Lattimore's deal for a really good player with some risk. It's not it's a good value to me, in other words. But it's not nothing. I don't want people to think it's pittance, but to me, that price tag makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think the value is perfectly fine, but to suggest that it's not a steep price for
Right.
an organization that is in build mode and prioritizes getting, not giving up picks, they walk around looking at the Christmas trees on the lot normally going, "We don't like spending that. We don't like spending
Hmm.
that. We don't like spending that." And today they took out their wad of money and they, flipped over a couple of bills and they said, "Yeah, we'll take that one." To your point, not nothing, I think is a good way to describe it. But he has not been a Pro Bowler, I will say, since 2021. So when you're saying it's a first or second round pick normally to trade for a Pro Bowler, well, if he was a Pro Bowler last year or if he was on his way to being a Pro Bowler this year,
Hmm.
I would agree with you. They're going to try to recapture some of that magic, and I like their chances too. Oh, by the way, because they've got a great secondary coaching staff. They've got a really good DC who gets a lot out of DBs. They've got a head coach who gets a ton out of defensive backs. The fact that Dan Quinn knows exactly what he's looking for when it comes to defensive backs. One of the reasons I feel so good about this trade. The fact that Joe Witt is going to be able, you don't even need to pop in tape. I mean, these guys have known Marshon Lattimore for years and years and years. Went to Ohio State, came out as the 11th pick. They've played against him, whether it with Witt, it was, Green Bay or Quinn at Atlanta, then in Dallas. They know this guy. They know if he's a fit. They know how he's going to work or not work in their scheme. So I trust that implicitly. But the idea, well, you're trading for a healthy quote unquote Pro Bowler. Actually, just missed the game with a hamstring for the second time this season.
Yep.
Week 2 in this past week, and he hasn't been a Pro Bowler since 2021. So that's why it doesn't cost a first or a second round pick. Not to mention, presumably, you're taking on money moving forward. Now, they'd already restructured his contract, so he cost you nothing this year. It's a listed cap hit of $600,000, which is the minimum. But over the next couple of years, if he's still on the roster and you don't want dead money and to move away from him, which I don't think they would have acquired him if that was the plan. I think they absolutely think Marshon Lattimore is going to be here as a fixture. It's a pretty sizable cap hit. It's basically signing a free agent for 2 years and like $36 million,
Hmm.
$18 million hits against your cap. So that's got to be part of the equation too. When people say, well, they really didn't give a whole lot up. Sure, they did. They gave up 3 draft picks, including a third, and a 2-year, $36 million deal beyond this year, essentially, for Marshon Lattimore. Tells you a lot about what they think of this roster, though, doesn't it? Tells you a lot about the fact that they do agree with me and with you and so many people that have been calling in, suggesting, why not this team? Why can't they win something meaningful this season? Why can't they be a thorn in the side of the NFC playoff picture? Obviously, Peters and company think that they can.
And that's why you do it, right? In if things had gone this year, for the sake of argument, the way that I thought they were, incorrectly, by the way, and I'm thrilled to be wrong about this because this is way more fun, but I thought they'd be, for the sake of argument, 4-5, maybe 3-6, having dropped the game they should have won or something, but competitive. Daniel's showing signs, and that's cool. Of course, you don't make this move. Right, that makes no practical sense. Taking on what will be, a decent salary chunk of cash, giving up draft picks, et cetera, for a team that's trying to build. You're still in very much a building phase, and they still are. They're still in great position next year to acquire some talent. Maybe you have to finagle some things in the draft to end up with the picks allotment that they usually like, but you're still going to have plenty of cap space. Still have the opportunity to add to this roster. So I still think they're in a long term. But the point is, you're trying to walk that tightrope the way the Capitals are doing right now, quite frankly, which is really hard to do. It's easier to do all of one or all the other. Be bad on purpose, be good on purpose, right? It's hard to I'm not saying they're being bad, but it's hard to do this. We're 100% building, but also here's something for right now. Now, I know this is longer term, but here's something we're giving up: future flexibility, cap space, assets for a guy that's going to help us now and then presumably in the future as well. But you don't make this move if you're 4-5. You don't make this move if you're okay. You do it because you're not up here that often.
I think this move sends ripple effects in the locker room too, that you're believed in. We always talk about the culture change and the brotherhood, right? If they did nothing at the deadline, that is a clear endorsement of a house money season. You guys are ahead of schedule. This year's not that important that we go deep in the playoffs. Whatever happens, happens. Good luck to you. We'll get back together this offseason when we've got the second most cap space and we've got 9 draft picks. Many of you won't be back, by the way. A lot of you are on 1-year deals, but this is the ground floor. We got our quarterback, so we're going to be good for a long time. They could have done that today. They didn't. They said, oh, you guys have engaged now in a battle, and you're holding your own when you weren't supposed to. You're King Leonidas and the 300 in the narrow passageway against the Persians. What if we gave you some reinforcements? What if we gave you the corner that you don't have right now to try to actually win this thing? And I think that is what Peters and his front office did today was they took inventory, and this is not a change of mission. This is in lockstep with the plan. This is in lockstep with the mission. Today helps this postseason, the rest of this season, clearly, but it helps next year and it helps the year after. And I think this is kind of a referendum, this trade, on the thinking that whatever happens this season happens, but the goal was to be better than the expectations. The goal this year is just to find out if Jaden Daniels is any good. Well, you found out. He's really good. He's playing his butt off. They've already outperformed the 6.5 wins that odds makers set. So whatever happens after this is gravy. No, you've got a real chance. You're number 2 in the NFC to Detroit right now in the standings. Let's give you the best opportunity to go upset the playoff field a little bit, to go be a real pain in the butt come January. I think that's what this trade does. I love it. I love that Peters, I don't even want to use push some chips in, but got aggressive today. Sent a message today. You got a 28-year-old still in his prime. I keep coming back to health, and I know people won't want to hear that, but that's the whole ball game.
It's the question, Grant. It is. And I'm sorry if that hurts your ears, but that's if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If he's not, it's going to be frustrating.
He has missed 20 of the Saints' last 60 games by my count, a third of their games. I mean, that is, by the standards of injury-prone players, that's pretty massive, right? That's substantial. But just because you've got a defensive head coach who knows the DB position and has really cut his teeth and become a legend coaching up the secondary, think Legion of Boom and what Witt's done and how many guys have led the league in interceptions with those guys, you know that they can evaluate that position. You know they can. And Peters' batting average is outstanding so far. So while I never do the in so-and-so I trust and ask zero questions, that's just not how I operate. I like being a critical thinker. I think people who have listened to this show since last year at this time when we started floating Peters' name know that I am completely enamored and man crush on him. I think he's really, really good. And between having faith in what he thinks, knowing that Quinn knows what he wants and doesn't want in a DB, knowing that you're getting a 28-year-old who's controllable, knowing that this was a massive gaping deficiency in this roster, I'm giving up my second best third-round pick, a fourth and a sixth, and I'm getting Lattimore and a fifth, which will be a special team safety or linebacker or whatever it is. Sure.
I'll do that every time.
Let's do this.
I'll do that every time.
And by the way, I had 2/3 because I already made a really good trade that already looks like a win for Jahan Dotson.
An incredibly shrewd move that is the better of your 2 third-round picks coming into this trade. So I posted this. People, I think seem to be a little confused about it, which is fine. I get it. You're not a professional pick tracker, but currently Washington holds the 72nd pick overall, which I believe is either the 8th or 9th pick in the third round. If the standings held today, there's going to be fluctuations, teams win, lose, etc. But that's via Philadelphia, which is via Miami. That's what they acquired in the Jahan Dotson trade. So people are just going, they traded Jahan Dotson for Marshon Lattimore. They didn't. They traded the worst of their third round picks and a fourth and a sixth, getting back a fifth for Marshon Lattimore. It's the cushion, or the blow is less. It's cushioned by the fact they have a better third-round pick than what they would pick, and they're doing this trade because they're good. So they'd be picking late in the third round. So we got the better of the 2 third-round picks still remaining.
I don't think they would have done this deal if they hadn't done the Dotson deal and had a second, third-round pick.
I agree with you.
You think so?
I agree with you. Yeah.
They seem to be too, and I like this, by the way, probably correctly, too motivated by draft compensation and the value of those picks to go get a veteran at the expense of being able to pick in the third round. But by making the Dotson deal, and still, I mean, unbelievable looking back now based on what he's given the
Just
Eagles.
a 500-foot bolt in a pimp job there. How about that?
Howie Roseman would undo that trade in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Peters would not. I think that tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, there are two picks in the third round to go deeper into what you were saying. Are pick 72 and pick 93 as of this minute. Pick 72 came via Dotson deal. Pick 93 is the original third round pick that they have, and they're really good, so it's near the bottom of the round right now. 21 pick difference. And they gave up their own, and they're keeping the Dolphins pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins, and we think Eagles because that's where Dotson went. The Eagles got that pick from Miami. Originally, it might have been in the draft day trade when San Francisco and Miami swapped and had all those picks, so they traded one to Philly. But bottom line is, you still pick early in the third round. You still have your first rounder, your second rounder. You will not now have a fourth rounder. Oh, well. And then you get a fifth rounder, and you gave up the sixth. That, by the way, was the Saints' original sixth round pick. That's what's funny. That was a pick swap when they traded John Ridgeway on cutdown day to New Orleans. So you gave the Saints their pick back, which is a funny wrinkle to all of this. But we came into the day saying they had one massive need and other needs that would be nice to address. So I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. That's how I felt. I have said all along, corner is the biggest problem for this football team. And every week you watch them, when they play any team that spreads you out and goes to 11 personnel and operates with multiple receivers that know what they're doing and are any good, they get exposed. Anytime they play a good offense or a quality quarterback, they get worked in the secondary. Marshon Lattimore comes in. You move St. Juste to 2. You move Sanders still to the nickel. You've still got Igbenogany. They'll have to make a roster move. Supposedly they're shopping Emmanuel Forbes as we speak. I mean, can you imagine if they got a late round pick for Forbes and just moved on from him?
Yes, I can. That would be fantastic. Again, because now they're looking in a different mode, right? You got someone who's blocked, who's not going to play. They need to change of scenery. Get what you can. Makes sense. You don't have to, but it'd be nice. Do you want to recoup that fifth rounder, that extra sixth rounder, which you can use then as draft capital to move up to get another fifth to supplement what you just gave up? I mean, they're always maneuvering. It's that near, medium, far range plans that they're always sort of trying to execute against.
Rizzo,
right?
Mike Rizzo of the Nats, refers to it as a 1, 3, and 5 year plan.
Mm-hmm. Slightly different timetable in football because long term is like a month from now. But
right.
But yes, that's what it is, right? It's this year, this offseason, and then a couple years from now. It's sort of sped up the way the NFL works with all the parity and the shorter careers. But yeah, it's good maneuvering. It is adult. It is sentient. It is coherent. Like, one move doesn't just sort of lead to a wild goose chase and then another move that seems to have no relation. You can draw the line. We're going to get away and get by with not having Jahan Dotson, and this third rounder is going to pay us dividends later on for this season. Trust us. Okay, I guess I will. Yeah, it does. Boom goes the dynamite. That's how you get to the point you have the flexibility to make this move. And every one of your hey, if this works out, you're going to be good. Every one of them works out. You're good. You're in this spot, and you can make that kind of move. This is front office brilliance, and I'm not used to do it. I'm not used to saying it. This is phenomenal.
Attaboy, Adam Peters. You square-jawed Avenger. You handsome devil.
Yep. Just keep hitting nukes, bro.
You did it again.